Wi-Fi to pull up my sermon notes, which again you can follow along in the Bible app. And for those of you who aren't on their phones, the picture I started with today, it's a lock. And I used to do weddings at the Admiral Bicknell. I don't know who took over the ownership or if they still do weddings there, but it's a great setting for a wedding. And they had this tradition where every couple would attach a lock to the gate, the fence out front. And some of you all, if you've walked by, you've seen all those little locks talking about permanence. You know, when we talk about love, we talk about what's supposed to be a permanent thing. In the Bible, love isn't just a permanent thing, it's an active thing. In our contemporary world, our contemporary understanding of love, I think that in general we have more of a passive understanding of love. Love is something that we fall into, and it's something that we say we fall out of. When I've given talks on love before, I often share that the first person I fell in love with was Princess Leia. Because how could you not? That was my first love, as it were. Love in this way, it's a feeling, much like my infatuation with Princess Leia. It's a feeling that begins as an infatuation. And often for people, love doesn't grow much more than that. And if you think about it, where love often begins when we're talking about romantic love, is it begins as an attraction. We fall in love because we are attracted to that person. And again, for some, they never get out of that sense of love, that feeling of love, to realize how deep and complex love can be, but simply let it stay at the level of infatuation or attraction. When we talk about biblical love, we talk about it in terms of action. The Bible takes an active understanding when it comes to love. And in the passage I just read, love is seen in tangible acts that in a lot of ways go against our human nature. In our humanity, our human nature, we are egotistic, selfish, rats. I don't know why that is, but it's true of all of us, is that left to our own instinct, we have our self-interest in mind. But the Bible tells us to do everything contrary when it comes to love. Be kind and patient, Paul told us. And put aside ego, jealousy, anger. Lay aside all self-seeking behavior, Paul told us. Again, all of that contrary to how we want to be as humans. How we want all the attention to be focused on us. Love's attention is always focused on the other. And if you're blessed, that love comes right back to you as they focus their love on you. Now, to put the passage in context, we have to realize that in this stretch of Corinthians, Paul's been talking about spiritual gifts. And he talks about how different kinds of spiritual gifts, some of which I read, like prophecy, tongues, teaching, that all of those go towards the upbuilding and the maturity of the body, the church. And he says each one of them serves a purpose. Yet as he told us in this passage, when that purpose comes to an end, so too does the gift. Yet love remains. In this passage that I read, Paul talks about the preeminence of love. That nothing we do in life has any value unless it's motivated by love. Paul elevates love as this overarching principle for everything we do in our lives. And he tells us that nothing we do, nothing we say means anything. It's nothing, he says, unless it's motivated by love. Life is, in my opinion, pointless without love. And we feel that when we feel that we are unloved, how important love is. Love isn't a noun. It's not according to the Bible. Again, that passive understanding sees love as a noun that we happen to get ourselves into. The Bible is consistent that love is a behavior. It's a verb, not a noun. The Bible doesn't talk about how love does or does not feel. The Bible isn't so much concerned about our feelings. Instead, when the Bible talks about love, it does so in terms of what love does and does not do. Now, he's writing to a particular group of people. And I'm going to try to help you understand how radical this passage actually is. Again, this 1 Corinthians 13, we attach so much sentimental value because we can all remember a wedding where someone has read this passage aloud as part of the service. But when Paul wrote it, it wasn't a matter of sentiment. It was a radical type of love that he was trying to convince the Corinthians to embody. Now, those Corinthians, they were well acquainted with eros love. In Greek, there are several different words for love, one of which is eros, which might be the base understanding of love. It's where we get the word erotic from. And the Corinthians were well aware of this kind of love because the temple of Aphrodite was in their town and all the rituals that went along with the goddess of love. In fact, in the day, to Corinthanize, I'm going to try to put this delicately, but the word Corinthanize was a byword for hanky-panky. Let's put it that way. That's what the town of Corinth was known for, hanky-panky. I don't think I've ever used that in a sentence. So they knew all about that sort of love. They struggled with another kind of love called philia or philo. That word is familial love, brotherly love. I talked about it last week. But we read in Paul's letter that they were having troubles with that kind of love too because they argued about who belonged. They were divided into these rival sections. They also took out lawsuits against each other, which Paul said should never happen in the church. And then they also neglected the poorer members of the church when it came to the Lord's Supper. So again, the Corinthians are well familiar with eros love. They are struggling with filial love. And then Paul drops a bombshell on them when he starts talking about agape love. And I was doing some study about how the idea of agape love doesn't really occur all that much in philosophical literature or other literature of the day. The word was certainly around, but Paul embraced it, and the church came to embrace this radical sense of love that had nothing to do with our selfish desires, that had everything to do with being a family, that can best be described as a God-sized love, a big love. If Anna was here, I would quote her on that. Anna Petrie, on a talk on the Great Banquet Weekend, she talked about big love, God-sized love. That's what we're talking about when it comes to agape love. It's a love that renounces self-interest. It's a love that's focused is the other person or on God. And it's best expressed through action. Tangible actions. I did a funeral this week, and the couple came to get married a little later in life. And when they started dating, she noted about how her husband showed love for her. And that the first gift he gave her, they weren't flowers. He didn't give her flowers that would quickly fade. Instead, his first tangible act of love that he showed that endeared him to her for the rest of her life, and beyond his, he gave her a toolkit. Because that's what she needed at the time. It was a tangible way of showing love, of being attentive to need, of caring about a person. Jesus linked love to action when he met Peter after his resurrection. He meets Peter along the sea, and Jesus says, "Peter, do you love me?" Peter says, "Lord, you know I do." So then what Jesus drops on him is go feed my sheep. Do something tangible. If you love me, then show me. Love as an action. C.S. Lewis gave great advice when it came to loving people, and to loving people in tangible ways. He wrote, "Don't waste your time bothering whether you love your neighbor. Act as if you did." As soon as we do this, we find one of the great secrets of life. When you are behaving as if you love someone, then you will come to love them. Instead of just sitting around wondering, well, should I love that person? Do I love that person? C.S. Lewis says, act like it. Put your love in action. And Jesus says, if we love him, as we read, then keep my commandments. And his commandments were very simple. That we were to love God supremely in our lives and to love others sincerely. Let me say that again. That's how I sum up Jesus' commandments. It's what the whole law hangs on, Paul says. That we love God supremely, first in our lives. But then alongside that, we love our neighbor sincerely. Not just acting like you love them, but acting as if you love them. So how do we embody this active love as individuals and as a church? And this is where I got to give my Tuesday morning Bible study a plug. We call it the Sermon Club. So every Tuesday morning we gather, about half dozen of us, and we reread the text from the previous Sunday, and we kind of pick them apart and learn more than what I just preached. And then we look ahead at the text for the Sunday to come. So we read this text together on Tuesday, and one thing we noted was the repetition in the New Revised Standard of the word all, but I like how the New International Version translated it as always. There are certain things in this passage Paul says that love always does. And there's one thing that he says love never does. So in order to enact love in our life, in order to live this active understanding of agape love, let's close by talking about what are the always of love. Plural. What does love always do? Well, the first thing we read is that love always bears. In Greek, the word is stego, and it can be translated as to bear with. But I love the base understanding of the word is simply roof. So to bear or to stego actually means to roof over something. And I love this image for love because it reminds us that love always covers or protects. Just think of anyone who goes after one of your children, or maybe a spouse or a best friend. Aren't you there to protect them if you love that person? This idea of cover and protect, I got to talk about the little bird. So when you come into our subdivision, we've got a field that one of these days is going to be developed. And as I'm pulling in the other day, I see one of the most inspiring sights in all of nature, where I see this itty bitty little bird going after this really big hawk. And the little bird is relentless. Have you seen this scene in the sky, right? Where those little birds, they're just diving, chasing, keeping that hawk at bay. What motivates that little bird? I don't know if birds are capable of love or if it's just maternal instinct, but that little bird is protecting its nest. It's protecting its babies. And again, it's a beautiful description of what protecting love looks like. Where we'd be willing to dive bomb whatever the hawk is in our life to protect our loved ones. So this sense of love always protecting. Love always protects is our first always. And it means that if we love a person, it's more than bearing with them. We're there to protect them. And for each of these, I'm going to give you a little phrase. I'm going to ask you to change I love you. So when it comes to the idea of love always protects, when we say I love you, what we mean is I got you. I got your back. I'm there for you. When you say I love you, that first phrase think of it as saying, I got it. The second thing that love always does, the Bible says it always believes. Whenever we run into the word to believe, in Greek the word is pistis, and it always comes with the understanding of not just believing in a person, but trusting in them. And if love is truly love, then what's one of the biggest factors that has to be present is trust. Because what is the single most damaging thing in a relationship is when trust is broken. That's how important trust is to love. Because when trust is broken, it's really hard to get back. And in some cases, it never can be. So if love is truly love, then it always trusts, even as difficult as that might be in some situation. But it's the basis of our relationship with Jesus, who said, do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust God, and trust also in me. So love always trusts. And what that means is it's putting one's trust in another while being trustworthy yourself. It's the first thing that I knew I had to do 8 years ago as your pastor. So I had to learn to cultivate your trust. And the way I did that, the way you can do that, is respect confidences, keep commitments, keep your promises, be willing to be vulnerable. It's the greatest moment of owning a kitten. I don't know, cat people out there, you know what I'm talking about. That a cat will show you that they trust you when they roll over and show you their belly and let you do belly rubs. Because that shows that they trust you. It's the most vulnerable part of their bodies. So vulnerability, trust. And for this phrase, when we say, I love you, then the phrase is, what we mean is, I trust you. I love you. That means I trust you as well. Love always hopes is the third. As I've preached about before, when we talk about hope in the Bible, it does not mean wishful thinking. It means confident expectation of future blessing. Hope defined as confident expectation of future blessing. In the New Testament, when we look up the word hope and where it appears, it is most often linked to our salvation. Is that our hope that we share is in our salvation that comes through Jesus Christ. Paul says, in hope we were saved, in his letter to the Romans. He writes to Timothy, for to this end we toil and struggle, because we have our hope set on the living God, who is the Savior of all people. And that salvation we know for all people came because God so loved the world. Even when they were sinners, God so loved the world that he sent Jesus to be our Savior. So when we talk about the hope and love always hoping or hope, we have to link this idea that Jesus died to save all because God loved all. And so when we choose to love a person, when we say, I love you, it's as if we're saying, Jesus loves you. I love you because Jesus loves you. Much like I talked about last week about treating or welcoming a person as if Jesus, what would happen if you went out into your life and chose to love people simply because Jesus loved them? To love them for their brokenness, their sinfulness, their imperfections. To love all of that simply for the very reason that Jesus loves them too. I think the best thing about love that I've experienced in my marriage, but in another relationship, is the final always of love is that it always perseveres. In Greek, it's hupomone, and it means so much more than just to bear through a thing or to endure. It's to do so steadfastly. The people who love you are always the people who are there for you. I showed up at the emergency room this week, and my friend is battling dementia. And I don't know why they were there, but they had to get a series of tests run. And in order to run these tests, there had to be a blood draw. And so I have a person who's confused anyways. and has been acting out a little bit in anger just because of the dementia. And all I did was show up to hold their hand while the nurse tried to find a vein. And to feel that tight grip, just to simply show them that I was there with them. There wasn't anything I could do. All I could do was hold a hand. But I wanted to show them that kind of love, that no matter what you're going through, that I want to be there for you. And so in this sense of love, and love always persevering, when you say, I love you, what you mean is, I'm with you. And you mean that with the sense that Jesus said that I am with you always. Whether it's a good time, whether it's a bad time, for better or for worse, we work into those wedding vows. So when we talk about the always love, let me recap. When we say I love you, what we mean is I got you. When we say I love you, what we mean is I trust you. When we say I love you, it means Jesus loves you. And no matter what, when we say I love you, we're saying I'm with you. The one thing that Paul said love never does is it never fails. When we always protect, always trust, always hope, always persevere, love never fails. When we say I got you, I trust you, I love you because Jesus loves you, and I'm with you, love never fails. When we choose to curb our anger, release our grudges, and accept beyond appearances, love never fails. When we open our lives, expose our bellies, and let other people in, love never fails. When we choose to care, dare to hope, and never give in, love never fails. And we have but to look to Jesus to see how love never fails. Jesus, who protected his flock, trusted his Father, hoped in the glory of Easter, and persevered on the cross. Jesus, who said, I got you, I trust you, I love you, and I'm with you even until the end of the age. Love never fails. When the powers of empires and crooked institutions tried to nail him upon death's tree, love never failed. When the powers of sin and its crooked insinuations tried to nail us down, we must remember that love never failed. Love never fails, and when we do, neither do we. Because there is nothing wrong with loving always, nothing at all, and with everything to gain.